Sorry.
You're good. And then also prior to that, I was also a venture partner at Chasing Rainbows with Patrick. So very passionate about underrepresentation and getting more representation out there. Obviously, the firm that I work at is very, I would say, more so conservative. And I know that we'll get more into that as the panel goes on. But that is me.
Thank you, Katie. Patrick, do you want to go next?
For sure. Patrick Driscoll, he, him pronouns, currently director of client development for emerging companies and venture capital for a law firm called Holland and Knight. I'm also an active venture partner at Gangels and former GP of Chasing Rainbows. I've been in the VC space for about 10-ish years. Originally worked in international development, lived abroad in West Africa and throughout Latin America. Kind of got into impact investing, which led me eventually to the LGBTQ plus community, which is a community I'm a part of. So I was doing all this other impact for other groups. Why not try to bring it to my own community? So did so when I was at 500 Global, working in Mexico City, managing one of their accelerator programs and investor accelerator programs at Stanford and Berkeley, did a program at INSEAD, and I would always try to bring in LGBTQ plus folks to attend those education programs to really flesh out LGBTQ plus folks in the VC ecosystem, because there didn't seem to be many in my experience at the time. This was 2017, 18, 19. Moved back to the States, got involved with Startout, have worked in accelerators focused in tech, deploying 20 million in some cool deep tech national security companies that was funded by the DoD. I've worked in product at Carta for fund admin, so been in kind of that role, and then launched Chasing Rainbows and have been on pushing the LGBTQ plus prerogative in kind of the VC world for quite some time. Spoke at the White House last year, for example, on LGBTQ plus representation in venture capital. Startout was a big part of that. And I think it was quite successful. Unfortunately, with the transition and the administration, all that momentum kind of fell down by the wayside, but we're still fighting the good fight in many other ways.
Great. Thank you so much, Patrick, Katie, and Navas for volunteering your time tonight. And now we're gonna, just before we dive into it, these are some of the topics that we're going through. First is understanding kind of, the lack of representation and diversity within the venture capital community, kind of going into finding, solutions, what is currently being done to support diversity within the VC community, and what can we do better, and then looking forward, what are some resources for, those looking to get into the venture capital career? What can, our panelists, provide any resources or insights into for those looking to do that? And then last but not least, questions from the audience about anything that you might have on this topic. So, to dive right into it, understanding kind of underrepresentation within the VC community. Startout's mission, as James mentioned, is to really accelerate growth within the LGBTQ community, and empower economic growth there. We see that LGBTQ founders are underrepresented by getting only 0.5% of funding, from 2020 to 2022. Based off a 2020 report from Columbia University, we see that 87% of VC professionals are white and 80% are men. But beyond that, there's not a lot of detail about really the statistics of diversity within the VC community. This is a question for all of our panelists. Have you experienced underrepresentation or lack of diversity, firsthand or through the lens of a colleague as you were navigating your VC career? Maybe we can go to you, Vas, first.
Yeah, the answer is absolutely yes. As far as I know, in the world of biotech and healthcare tech, so let's do like tech bio, like where I was investing for the last decade. I don't think there was another GP who was out and representing the space. And maybe if they were, I was not familiar. And I think that that was what I received consistently as feedback from founders. But I think in general, many people from the community also were wondering, how do you get into VC? The reality is there is no easy path in law school. You go in and you understand what the path is. You even in grad school, you have like you finish your PhD and your postdoc, and then maybe you become a professor. In the world of venture, it's just absolutely bizarre, like how you get in. I bet even if you went around the room and if you were to stop and ask people in other firms, how did you get into the role? Everyone's going to have a unique story, and there is like I don't see internal promotions of people. It's supposed to be an apprenticeship world, but like you don't generally get promoted up. And so I think it becomes even harder. And if you don't have people at the top advocating and looking particularly for people in the community to get that leg up, I think you tend to hire more people who are like you, who you enjoy building businesses with. And so I think it is tough. I will add, and this is not part of your question, but one other thing of like why our community have a hard time in just in starting their own fund. It's because when you go out and raise money from LPs, our community is not represented in the LP side of things to put money into funds either. I'm currently on the road. It's 2 in the morning here and 2:12. And as I am on the road in the Middle East, I still see that like a large part. I don't think this entire year I have come across someone from the community on the other side who's an LP who's interested in writing a check into a venture fund. So I think it's lonely on multiple fronts, and the path is unclear, and I think it is generally hard. And so I haven't come with solutions, but I'm acknowledging that there is a problem.
Thank you so much, Vas, for that. And going on the LP side, that's something that I haven't thought about. Katie, do you have any experience?
Oh yeah, of course. So I am obviously being female, and then most people looking at me initially think just automatically assume I'm straight, which I am the L in the LGBTQ. So that's always fun. And especially like I briefly mentioned in my introduction, working at Stony Lonesome Group, again, I'm around a lot of military veterans, more conservative minded people. A lot of so it's always interesting, but specifically in the VC space, talking more about that, yes, I want to say I'm probably one of 5 women on the east side of Florida that I know of in venture capital. So and that's not including Miami again, that's like Orlando, Tampa, Sarasota, Naples area. And I, again, live in St. Petersburg, but I worked in Sarasota, or I lived in Sarasota for a little bit. And I don't know if you guys have visited Sarasota, but it is very white, very cis, very straight. My partner and I actually lived in Sarasota. And so therefore, when we would go out, we would always get stared at. And when I lived there, being in VC or being in finance in general, again, I was probably the youngest and I was probably like one of the only females. So just throwing that out there and then add in there the lesbian part, definitely underrepresented. There's definitely like hardly any representation out here. I will say though, kind of piggybacking off of Vass's comment on the LP base, which I think we were going to get to a couple questions down, is I think what I'm finding is one, it's been a tough fundraising environment in general. So take out the LGBTQ community. I'm on the fundraising side as a vice president for Stony Lonesome Group. We've been fundraising for I've been on the team for 4 years, and it's been very, very difficult, even for a non-LGBTQ community. But add in the LGBTQ, of course, that's going to go down even more. I know for women, when I started my startup in 2015, 2017, 2% of women got funding, which is crazy. I think I looked at statistics recently or heard recently that that's down below 1%. So that's females across the board. So the representation is definitely low. The markets are definitely have been difficult across the board. So that adds in another layer of complexity. Going again back to Vasa's point is I think it's creating groups and also I would say education. Like I educate a lot of people out here with a lot of money that invest in what they're familiar with. So if it's real estate, they're investing in real estate. If they made their money, say owning like multiple businesses, that's where they're putting their money. So I think having these conversations together and creating groups is a solution. So like, for example, I've created a women's investment group where a bunch of different investors are coming together that are women, and basically it's an education arm of like, hey, like I want to know about mergers and acquisitions. Like, let's learn from someone who has that expertise, or hey, I'm in venture capital, I want to educate you guys, and then syndicate deals together, right? And that's how Gangel started, was like-minded people coming together and syndicating deals together. So to me, that is one of the solutions, kind of going with what Bass was saying.
Thank you so much, Katie. Patrick, certainly, last but not least, how about your experiences?
Yeah, it was always interesting from the LGBTQ plus perspective. I worked for some great firms like 500 Global that cared about diversity in the VC and startup ecosystem, and they would do these D&I, Unity and Inclusion Summits that I don't think they do anymore. But when I looked at the agenda, they didn't have anything for LGBTQ plus. It was women, founders of color, immigrant founders, all these other things. And I remember thinking that was strange, and I was quite junior in my career. And it was like the first time I stood up and was like, we need to do something for the LGBTQ plus community. This is like a major high profile event. And of course, no one intentionally didn't do it. There just wasn't someone to hold the torch and make sure that the LGBTQ plus community was represented, which I think is indicative of like the general ecosystem. If someone isn't there to push the envelope and try to get more folks involved, then it's going to fall by the wayside and no one's going to do it for us, which is just kind of like a little anecdote I like to share. Now, from when I started back in 2017 in VC to where things seem to be today, there does seem to be an uptick in LGBTQ plus folks scattered throughout in a variety of VC fund roles, in great founders. There are high profile folks like Sam Altman. There are high profile problematic folks like Peter Thiel, but there's all these power players that are coming out that are LGBTQ plus, which I think serves as a beacon on the hill for other LGBTQ plus folks to aspire to be, which is good. And then the LGBTQ plus community is good at one thing, and it's connecting with one another. So throughout my career, I've been fortunate enough to like find everyone who's LGBTQ plus that works in venture. And there are really good like WhatsApp groups or ways that you can network with folks for mentorship opportunities. If you're a founder looking for fundraising, you can go even like find lists of LGBTQ plus investors that are partners or associates or even analysts to get your foot in the door that happen to identify as LGBTQ plus. So leaning into that kind of informal network has been quite useful. Nowadays, it seems a little bit less transparent for folks to fully come out and be like in many ways because of the current things that are happening in the world, which is a little unfortunate, but there are still tons of informal networks where you can access these types of things. It's gotten better, but it's still not good also. So the fact that I like personally probably know 95% of LGBTQ plus people in venture capital isn't a good sign of how many people are in venture capital that are LGBTQ plus. You know what I mean? There could always be more. And there's several ways, which I think we'll get into later, as to how you can try to break in. But yeah, so it's better, I think, leaning into the community and the network, and other underrepresented communities kind of band together in a lot of ways. So I do a lot of stuff with like Black VC. Was just at the Women's Venture Summit last week in Southern California. So typically the communities that are underrepresented at least try to like help each other out a little bit, which is good.
Great, thanks, Patrick. Katie, I want to dive a little bit deeper. I know that you, at your firm, you mentioned that your group is a little bit more conservative. Do you see certain industry verticals within the venture capital world as being more underrepresented than others? Can you clue in from your perspective on that?
Yeah, I would say I have a really good pulse on the sectors that I mentioned. So like AI, cybersecurity, robotics, more of those industries, healthcare, health tech. Obviously in health tech, I would say I see a lot of female representation, which is awesome, female founders. But yes, being in a very conservative, I would say again, it's by nature of we're dealing with a lot of military vets. Sorry, my cat is going to join me. As far as like underrepresented, I can't think of, I mean, industry wise, man, I should have thought about that question a little bit more because now I'm like going back through, I'm not really, I don't know about that actually. I'm gonna have to think on that one.
I can take a swing at it too.
What?
I can take a swing at it for
Yeah, go for that.
verticals that are underrepresented or like overrepresented for LGBTQ plus founders.
I
Kind
feel
of
like
both.
you're more generalized, Patrick, so it's probably a great question for you.
So when I was at Chasing Rainbows and even in my role at Gangels, a lot of LGBTQ plus founders will reach out, and there is a lot of folks that do consumer, like CPG type companies. I would say was if you had to choose a big bucket winner, that was where a lot of LGBTQ plus founders sat. A lot of companies focused in the LGBTQ plus community, mental health, like anything around gender or transitioning or medical care and for the trans community. And then sports, there was a lot of LGBTQ plus folks in sports tech, which was kind of interesting. And then there's just a smattering of LGBTQ plus folks and a lot of other things. Defense tech, I'd say,
Probably, yeah.
similarly, there does seem to be some LGBTQ plus founders in defense, but it does skew heavily
Yeah.
not being very LGBTQ plus.
Agreed.
AI, there are some great LGBTQ plus founders. I mean, there's a cajillion founders in AI right now, so that's no surprise to anyone. But I think we're everywhere. Like that's the cool thing about the LGBTQ plus community. You'll find a few of us in the general founder ecosystem in a variety of things. Gov tech, you name it. We have some cool founders.
Great. Bass, I want to get to your perspective. I know in your intro you mentioned, having partners and LPs being kind of like-minded in what they fund and who they hire. Why do you think there are some biases put in place preventing those who might be in the LGBTQ community or, people of color from getting into venture capital?
My glass half full answer on it is it maybe not a bias, it's just inherently networks hire networks, and it's where people spend time. And it's definitely a glass half full. And I hope that, especially in areas where venture capital is thriving, San Francisco, Boston, New York, LA, that people perhaps are maybe more open to just hiring people irrespective of sexuality.
Hmm.
That said, I think, yeah, I have not seen active engagement from my fellow GPs and other funds actively trying even to be an ally to the community.
Mhm.
When was the last time you saw a partner from Sequoia spending time actively making it their mission? And they're lovely people. It's just like not where they've spent time in it. And the problem is, if you don't, then you don't get to know the wonderful people in our community, and then you don't get to mentor them, you don't get to bring them into the conversation, and you don't get to hire them. And the other challenge is, like I said, like, yes, I think Katie mentioned like in health tech or others, the founders who are, but isn't it funny that you think about health tech and VC funding into it, and it's underrepresented? These digital health companies and women founders don't raise as much as male counterparts in the world of like the AI companies. So in one sense, even where you do see representation, there are challenges and problems. And yeah, I think that it is consistent across all levels in startup founders, in the VC representation of people who are allocators, not in the junior roles, but in actual decision makers, and in the LP side. And Alex, I'll come back to your question again. Like, if it was not a glass half full, and I've had to think about a I actually do think that to some extent there is like the sense of like decorum of what people expect to see and define what like a good founder looks like. Your brains have been trained to think and see a certain archetype of what great is or a great VC is, and how you're going to fight to ask the question. So if you don't have like the mannerisms and the bedside manner of what is typical in like what someone else is doing it, maybe also you're just not considered to be good, even though maybe your brain still operates extremely well. Maybe you're discounted, which is not fair. There's my slightly more glass half empty look.
I like
Can I
it
touch on
too.
something that Vass said though? Because
Yeah.
that's what came up for me is, so I referred to it a little bit, but creating the women's group that I'm creating, by the way, I would say the majority of them are lesbian, which is great. So these are women, and the whole premise is what I've realized being in this space is that men are having these conversations, right? They're getting together and they're talking about ways to invest together and what companies they're looking at. They're sharing deal flow that way. And so for me to be able to do that and diversify my own investments, because I know what I know, which is VC, and I know what I don't know, which is like M&A or like small businesses. Like I don't know everything. I wasn't a finance background. Again, I was kind of more the non-traditional. I started out as a tech founder and then I got to VC. So, but I think also reminding ourselves that unfortunately we are still paving a way. And so it's creating groups and creating conversations around like, and challenging, right? Like challenging the LGBT community, the people who have money to invest in the different things, right? Like invest in the things that they're not familiar with because it's good for everyone. It's good for diversification for the LP, it's good for the founder, it's all around good. So I would add on and say that we need to continue creating groups and having conversations and creating those spaces for these kinds of conversations.
I'm gonna say,
Absolutely.
hey Patrick, if you do have a gay investor group, be great to be added to it. Say, look, I mean, I've been doing this for a decade. I don't think I'm part of any WhatsApp gay investor group either. So,
I'm
Yeah.
not either.
okay, great. So I'm glad Katie and I both are not part of it. So, Patrick, you're in a magical world. Like, would love to. Yeah, if there are, I don't know if you're so
Yeah,
active on that.
LGBTBC has compiled like a pretty strong list. If you reach out to them, they can definitely send it off to you too. Yeah, let's chat.
Yeah, and if there's a group, just like feel free to add us. Like,
Yep.
it'll be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think doubling down on that network component, like I attended an event where Mark Schuster, who's the founder of SaaStr, and he's invested in a million billion things, and it was a venture capital unlocked program at Stanford, which helps to teach aspiring VCs the ropes in the Silicon Valley model. He basically told the room of aspiring VCs that like 5% of you will be successful, 95% of you won't be successful in VC, which is great for folks that just spent like $25,000 on a program at Stanford to hear that. But I digress. And then a woman raised her hand and was like, hey, listen, like I've already raised a fund. I have success. I have a portfolio, but how do I break into the boys club of Silicon Valley where I get access to the best deals?
Mhm.
Because I can invest in my network and my network is good and I know they're good, but I'm not going to push the envelope. Like my small fund isn't an indicator to other VC funds that this deal is going to be good. And Mark Schuster's like response was basically like, you're never going to break into the boys club. You have to make your own
Mhm.
club.
Mhm.
So I think that's a very big point to like double click on, and trying to highlight the success of our community, and Gangels is a good job here. Obviously, Gangels invests kind of ubiquitously now, but their success, I think, can lead to the success of other folks, and they may pull in a lot of really good deals. They have a
Mhm.
really good like deal flow thing because they also went outside of the LGBTQ plus community. They showed the value that they could bring, and so they're
Mhm.
getting deals sent from all corners of the VC market.
Great.
So yeah, I think that's important to note. And just to double click on the LP thing, like the money does start at the top. And I like the 3 times when I was raising a VC fund that I ever came across an LGBTQ plus LP, it was such a relief that I was chatting with someone who like mentioned their same-sex spouse or whatever. And I was like, oh, like it just was so nice to see, but it was so few and far between. It was absolutely wild, specifically at the LP stage.
Here's
And
the crazy thing though, and I would add to that, Patrick, what I'm finding is, again, there's a lot of, especially gay men, I would say too, like have a ton of money and they do fit the LP, like, they make $250,000 or they have $1 million in assets, right? And so I find it's the education piece. So again, like why invest in venture capital? Like why invest in
yeah,
technology?
Yeah, this is the institutional LPs is what I was referring to, but
Oh, got it. Institutional.
like, yeah, the whole high net worth LGBTQ plus community, which there are a lot of high net worth LGBTQ plus folks
Yeah,
not investing into VC. So
correct.
educating them and proving it out as a viable asset class is something that I've done a lot of work on. And part of the reason I moved to Los Angeles from San Francisco was to access all of the high net worth folks in LA who would theoretically be interested in diversifying their portfolio, meaning they'd invest into a VC fund. And had a lot of weird dinners and meetings and conversations with folks that were like, thought it was going to be like Silicon Valley, the TV show, and you have to really manage expectations. Or like, I'm going to get my return in 3 years. No, you're not going to get your return for 10 plus years if you're investing early stage. So
Mhm.
I don't know, it's a whole fun song and dance.
Mhm.
Thanks for that. I think it's great to have such a lively conversation around this. I kind of want to turn it toward perhaps, certain solutions that are either in place or maybe that we can do to improve those opportunities for diverse or LGBTQ individuals going into this profession. Patrick and Katie, you both have worked at firms that were dedicated to this space, like Chasing Rainbows and Gangels. Are you seeing kind of a rise on the, they're more toward LGBTQ founders, but are you seeing on the flip side any programs dedicated to those looking for careers in VC? I know I looked up one called LGBT plus VC, which is a non-for-profit organization, but do you see others that have popped up, through your career?
The LGBTQ plus VC is one. They do fellowships. They're pretty good. I know they specifically focus for like college students, high school age students.
Yeah.
They might be expanding outside of that, but that was their key focus. I honestly have not. I know that there are fellowships and VC education programs that focus in underrepresented communities, like venture capital include, for example, diversity VC. Um, I have a full list I can send out to folks after this. I can't think of the other ones, but those ones are more ubiquitous. There isn't really one that focuses in the LGBTQ plus community per se. But like there are so many but VC University at Berkeley and Venture Forward, and now in partnership with Stanford, they just kind of expanded the program. They do scholarships for underrepresented folks looking to break into VC. So there are even scholarship opportunities for LGBTQ plus folks or other underrepresented communities to attend these relatively expensive programs to learn the ropes of VC and to join the community and build the network and all that stuff. So these resources do exist. You just gotta, you know the right people to ask or know what ChatGPT prompt to put in to find it. So that's what I would say about that.
Great.
Great.
And then kind of on the other side for Vass and maybe Katie, working at firms that aren't necessarily dedicated to LGBTQ empowerment, are there programs or fellowships at, your specific firms that have supported minorities getting into this career or similar careers? Do you have examples of such initiatives?
I'll just go really fast. So going back, I don't know of organizations that are helping LGBTQ focused people get into VC actually. So the more that I was thinking about it, I'm like, wow, like that's a big opportunity for our group, to be honest. But also like getting involved in, you can become a venture partner. It's easy for, especially if you have a founder background, like become a venture partner for these firms. Just reach out and be like, hey, or like a tech scout, if you will. Like I'm involved with these different organizations. I can bring you deal flow. So think of it like that. That's a good way to get into VC. That's actually kind of how I got involved with the firm that I'm at currently. Is it started out, I was a venture partner and then it led to a full-time position. So it could be for general funds, it could be for LGBTQ focused funds, it could be for you name it, but I think just being proactive, you can also go on LinkedIn. Like I'm a venture scout for other VCs as well. Like I don't just stick to my firm. Like I'm still looking for, because I'm coming across technology. And if I can, send that somewhere and it get funded, then I get what's called carry at the end of the day. Um, I will also touch on, Patrick made a good point, getting into VC, like learning more about the space and connecting. I went through VC online university with Berkeley, and it was a great program. I got a scholarship for it. So I feel like most of you guys, like most of us would that would apply for would get in. And it's a really good organization to be a part of and to network with. So I will say look into that program. But that's what I got.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Vass, how about you? From your perspective, working at Artists or at other firms, are there fellowships or programs that are supporting minorities?
I run my own fund now called Anomaly, and I'm excited to do that because I think that I want to be able to uh, work with people I want to and run programs that I think are like without like having corporate or anyone having a boss tell me how to engage within the community. So I think the truth is, it's tough. Like sometimes it's kind of fun to actually have been part of a larger organization, but in reality, someone, I don't know, I think it's just I had to do it and I had to go out and be able to do it. And I'd say I will continue to do that as part of the community and provide opportunities wherever I can to folks. Um, I think people covered general other avenues. I'd say my one rule I've had since I was getting my PhD is, and I still stick to it like many, many, many years later. I won't say how many years because then I don't want you to age me and guess my age. But like I'd say I think that I've been emailing or messaging people, whether it's on LinkedIn or my goal is to meet one new person every week.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that every week since I finished my PhD many, many years ago. And I think it's really fun. And I think the world is beautiful and has some amazing people. And through that, you'll expand your network. But like, I then try within that giant cohort to have some meaningful connections through it. So I follow up with people and expand on it. And I think the VC business is largely a people business. And so I love the idea of meeting and keeping in touch with people. So I think I encourage all of you to, if you want to get into the space and if you find a VC, just message them. And maybe a third won't write back, but those who do, you'll suddenly have a coffee chat with someone or you'll have a drink with someone and you'll get to know some wonderful people. And so don't be afraid. And I think you'll find the more people are likely to respond and want to pay it forward. Take advantage of that.
Great idea.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. If I get an inbound message from like specifically someone trying to break in VC who's younger or perhaps a founder that has exited and they're LGBTQ plus and they connect with me on that specific like topic, I'm happy to hop on a call with them and give them any sort of advice that I think might be relevant and open up doors and introductions and things like that. I think that's like the nature of how you succeed in VC in many ways. It is your network, and if you're going to be helpful to folks, folks will be helpful to you. And there have been people that I've advised on their career who are now GPs at funds that send me deals that I send to other VC funds. So it's kind of like definitely like a you scratch my back, I scratch yours type of thing. Um, so always, and I think a lot of VCs feel that way. They're definitely like a-holes in the VC ecosystem with egos out the wazoo who won't ever respond and stuff. But for the most part, folks are kind. And even if you go to events, network, meet people, find like a cohort of people of other LGBTQ plus folks that are trying to break into VC, bounce ideas off one another. Um, and you really can't go wrong. One one other thing I'll mention is there's a lot of like cool resources out there that you can find where you can find opportunities like John Gannon blog, Nicole Tommaso, who's a social media influencer at Harlem Capital. She posts about career breaking into VC specifically. That's like her entire brand. So she's done a really good job
She's great.
uh, of outlining key ways to break into VC, and she talks a lot about building your own pipeline, sourcing deals, and handing off like a very nice deal memo to a VC fund saying, this is the caliber of deal I could bring to you. That takes work and time and effort to put into it, but it's not an easy industry to break into. So you're going to have to put in time and you're going to have to put in effort to do so. So I think she's a good person to follow.
Yeah, I think, you guys touched on my last topic, which was, any resources or tools. So jumping the gun there. And I guess, yeah, Katie, do you have any, final thoughts there on any resources that, those looking to get into the career?
I would say the ones again that I mentioned, the one that's Patrick's mentioned, I think that it was a great point that Vass made. I'm the same way. Like I reach out to anyone and everyone, right? Going back to the quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I live by that quote. So I will reach out. I mean, again, I'm on the fundraising side. So all I do is reach out to high net worth individuals. And believe me, I've probably got a 20% success rate so far. But I've also met an incredible amount of people. To Patrick's point, your network is everything. And I found honestly what has helped my network grow significantly. Here's a tool for you is I always offer up a connection. So if you look at my LinkedIn, it says super connector. Like I really love connecting people to people. And I will always end a conversation, say, who in my network can I connect you to? And obviously I make sure the other person is open to that because I never want to make a cold connection and then that person be like, why did you make that? I hate when people do that to me. So making sure that the other person is okay with me doing that, but 95% of the time they are, and I'm happy to make those introductions. So I think, right, it's all about giving as well. Like, how do you give to the person? What value do you bring to them? So use your LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn. And don't be shy. Again, you're gonna miss a lot of the shots, but if you don't take them, you're not missing or making. So I mean, that's really all I have. Again, you can go on LinkedIn. There's a ton of people looking for venture scouts or venture partners. So take advantage of those. To Patrick's point, like get good at investment memos, whether you're a venture partner or an associate or an analyst. That's all you're doing is investment memos as to why a company is good. So that's what I got.
Great. Well, if there's any final messages from the panelists, I'll leave it open. Otherwise, we're going to jump into Q&A from the audience. So if you have a question, feel free to either leave it in the chat or go off mute.
One thing I'll say is the operator track into a VC fund. So platform roles specifically at a venture capital fund. That's how I got into VC. I joined a VC. I didn't know what VC was when I joined a VC firm, to be honest. I had seen like 2 episodes of Silicon Valley, not the second time I'm dropping Silicon Valley the show. But I ran investor education programs for them. And it was great because I got to learn VC. I got to network with all these great partners, got to meet a lot of founders. I learned the ropes in the classrooms. I built a pretty strong, robust international network of other VCs who attended the programs. And there's a great newsletter called Do You Want to Work in Platform? And if you just search that, you could probably find it. Or So You Want to Work in Platform. And then every week you get sent platform roles. And then it's a good way to get your foot in the door at a lot of really great VC funds or service providers that touch VC, and then you can kind of like bridge the gap into an investor role from there. That's another route that you can take.
A great idea. I'd never thought of that. Love it.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience?
So Alex, we had one from Wesley Wade. I think Vass, you had answered it. Thank you so much for putting that out there. But Wesley is a start out member, Black gay immigrant founder, championing a product he calls Kiki, social activity, networking, and event ticketing platform. So poised to become an infrastructure for pride globally. I think his question is more about getting a tepid response from venture capital groups. Response rate is quite minimal. He feels it's largely related to a certain bias, a question about the size of the TAM given the population of queer folks or the ability to achieve venture scale and ROI. Vass, I know you had answered this in the in the actual chat. Did you want to say a little bit more about it?
Maybe I open it up to Wesley and ask him if that was helpful and
Okay.
if that was
Because you
anything
had
else.
three suggestions in here. Excuse me, target angel groups and structure a safe note, and then work on margins. So um, I don't know. I don't know if you wanted to add a little more.
Yes, that's absolutely helpful. I think this is Wesley speaking, by the way. As I've been, a month and a half in this process, one of the things that I realize is it's ideal when you talk to folks that understand and can relate to what you're creating. And so a key part of what I'm trying to do in my strategy is to reach, LGBTQ investors and people who understand the market, because obviously, if I were doing a mass market product, it would achieve a different reception than a product focusing squarely on queer people. And so, the reason why I joined this conversation is to learn more about, how to connect with specifically LGBTQ investors. I've already talked to Gay Angels; they're on board. I know about some of the resources that you mentioned, Patrick, but I just wanted to learn if there were others and how, I could get beyond the current blockade because
And
um,
Wesley, if my point was not clear in there, first of all, um, honestly, it takes a lot of courage to build something. I've been a six-time founder, so it's not like easy. So first of all, congratulations, and it is really hard to fundraise. Want to completely acknowledge that. But I will say one of the best things I did in one of my businesses is not take venture capital money and just bootstrap it, or another
Mhm.
one I had just friends and family or family office back me and just move it forward. I'm not saying that's right for you. What's right for you is, I think you know what's right for you, and if you think VC is the way you do want to do it, then so be it. But I just want to say you will have the classic conundrum of being able to showcase for a population of people who identifies LGBTQ, is it large enough a market for a venture fund to be able to get the sizable kind of returns that they are expected to get? And so, if you go into the conversation, make sure you very much can show people that that can be the case. And
Mhm.
in this case, it's not because they don't like you or they don't want you to, but like the onus is on them to be able to have these kind of returns. And consumer businesses and network businesses are really tough. I built like GLG Institute, which is a two-sided marketplace. I connected retired CEOs to current CEOs. And so building that is really tough. But that would have been very hard as a venture-backed business. And
Mhm.
so just keep that in mind as well, right? Like, and sometimes you can go out and you may think you're crazy because like you're like, wow, no one is like really, this is such a great business. And in reality, it just may not be the right business given fund mandates of like what is expected, or the ones you're talking to. So then maybe find a like-minded family office that is mission oriented, or find like
Yeah.
a philanthropic organization that wants to support it. And like maybe let's get Start Out to start its own like little funds and give people money to be able to build things out. I don't know. Like I think there are ways in which like you can think about it, but like I still encourage you based on at least what you described without knowing too much, like alternative sources of funding are not always a terrible idea, including non-dilutive dollars. So
Mhm.
government
Great.
grants are great to be
Mm.
able to also move things forward.
I agree
Appreciate it.
with
Thank you.
I agree with that. I was just going to say that VC is going to be hard for you because we are beholden to our LP base. So like we have 300 investors, for example, so we're beholden to 300 of them. So I would say your best bet is to look for like-minded, so like angel investors or family offices that have that like-minded, and they're not beholden to anyone, right? Like it's their money, they're putting it in because they believe in you, is going to be an easier bet than a VC, to be honest.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I did, by the way, I did bootstrap it myself, and I got it to a point now where I just can't do it anymore. So,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll send a deck of non-dilutive funding resources that could be relevant. Obviously, government grants are a little bit more complicated now, but there's a ton of other grant opportunities that could be good. Yeah, VCs, this is going to be tough. I've seen plays like this as well. And I'd be curious to know more about what you're building as a differentiator because
Sure,
like
absolutely. I'd love
even
to let you
even
know.
outside of the LGBTQ plus community, I've seen like even broader like social driven networks and marketplaces that have like 95% of them have been unable to raise from VC.
Mhm.
And that's not
Well,
good.
I think I have a pretty, novel business model. Also, given my background, 20 years in ad technology, and there's a bunch of, meaningful advisors behind it. So, would happy to connect with you, Patrick, to give you more information and get any insight that you have.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience?
I would love to ask a question as well. My name is E. I'm a founder based in San Francisco building products for creator economy monetizing AMAs. I have a question, which is even in San Francisco, every single product is basically AI related or AI influenced. And it makes sense for some more AI native products or you're building foundational models. But if you're building something that's not with AI as its core, do you recommend kind of still mentioning we implement AI to like expedite certain features, or is there any requirement from the LP to only invest in AI products or AI related products these days?
That's the most San Francisco question I've ever heard.
I'm sorry about that.
No, for sure. I think like, putting AI in your deck just for the sake of putting AI in your deck, I wouldn't do. If it's a key component of what you're building and the product that you're doing, then by all means lean into it and add it to your narrative. A lot of San Francisco VCs really like having some sort of AI component. And you said AMA, like I can see there being an AI, like an AI story that you can add to it, but don't make it the main story if that's not what you're building.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I was just going to say that what I found is we always say, we kind of joke in our firm that you can shake a tree and an AI company falls out because literally everyone is an AI company. And then when we do deeper due diligence, we find that they're using like ChatGPT or they're using some AI component, but it's not their actual business, what they built. And that to us is a huge red flag. Remember too, the VC space, it's a small space. And we all kind of talk and do deals together. So if it's not a part of your business, I would say leave it out, and just be forthright about it. Like we utilize AI in this way. That would be my suggestion to you to
Which
explain.
is a green flag. Like you're saving time and
Correct.
money and resources by using AI. So
For sure.
VCs will like to see that you're leveraging existing LLMs for whatever you're building because it means that you didn't have to build it yourself. So you saved a bunch of time and resources
Right.
and effort.
Got it. Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question if there's one. I have a question. We had, the conversation was, I think, more geared toward the US market. I don't know if there's insights abroad, internationally, if you have any insights into the VC community,
Yeah.
ex-US.
Yeah, so the WhatsApp group that I kind of alluded to earlier is mostly LATAM VCs. And they're all LGBTQ plus VCs that live in Latin America, and founders are allowed in that group too. So there are communities that exist to connect the dots for the LGBTQ plus community, and like LATAM. I know Europe has Identity VC, the I3, I think, is one out of London. So that there are communities that exist that I think are starting to do like education fellowships, internships for LGBTQ plus folks. I'm not sure about, I know there was somebody in Hong Kong that was building something, but this was a few years ago, and I don't know what's happening with the current state of Hong Kong, if that's still like in the works. But I would imagine that they exist. These types of communities exist under the radar or informally in many parts of the world.
Thank you, Patrick.
I don't know. Do you see anything, Vas, in Doha? You're in Doha, correct?
I'm in Dubai, and I would
Dubai, got you.
recommend that like people don't come out to Saudi and Dubai and post to look publicly yet for LGBT. I'm not, yeah. I think it's dangerous even in these markets to be able to do that. So I would
For sure.
say, unfortunately, here, maybe, yeah. So I do think, I wish that will change. I also do think that if you were in India or in China, mainland China, not Hong Kong, um, it would be tough. I know in Singapore, I've spent a lot of time, it's very tough. Um, so yeah, I do think certain other geographies, I've not seen much representation. I've spent a lot of time in traveling to some of these areas. So I think there's a lot of work to be done in our community to be visible. So, but I think we can barely get like the US right, and we all live there. And that I think we should, like, not that we shouldn't start other, I think it's nice to have sparks everywhere. There's no wrong place to start things. So if anyone does want to create communities elsewhere, invite us, because this group clearly cares about this. So I think we'll all be there to support, or if not, be cheering for you behind the scenes. So I'm also really happy that these many people did show up, because it takes like a village to be able to move this forward. So I think it's still worth it at 3 in the morning to be on this, and because I think it's like it's never enough. It's the easier thing is just to be apathetic. I think it's important to lean in, and it's hard enough for all of us. I think it's okay to say it's hard and try and lean in and actually try and help.
Yeah. I think just to leave some parting thoughts, Alex, because I think we're winding down. These kind of piggybacking on everything, like these are the conversations that need to take place, and I think more need to happen, and especially in our local communities. So my challenge for you guys is to get involved or create and pave the way. Like I like to say, so I played women's professional football. For me, now we're seeing flag football finally for women in college. It was not a thing when I played. I played college softball, very lesbian of me, I know. But anyways, it takes someone to be willing to pave the way. And I think that we are those type of people, everyone that are on this call. So again, creating groups and reaching out and getting, just tell your story, and find like-minded people to bring in, and we'll start to see more representation across the board, founders and VCs and allocators and all of it.
Yeah. Love that. And then from my end, getting into VC and being a successful founder, the hit rates for individuals that aren't LGBTQ plus are infinitesimally small, like tiny, tiny, tiny. So add on to that the complexity of being LGBTQ plus and being out and navigating different grievances as it relates to identity, and then if you're intersectional with demographic information and other demographics, like the numbers go farther and farther down. So the game is like tenacity, and the game is grit, and the game is like don't give up if things are stacked against you, and just find people that can support you and build you up. And communities like Start Out is one of the big I owe so much of my professional success to people I've met through Start Out, and Angels and Lesbians in Tech and some of these other really high profile groups that have opened up the door and really kind of propped me up when all I wanted to do was say, F this, I can't spend another minute talking about like valuations or begging people for money for my VC fund. So just know that it's going to take a lot, but if you stick with it, things will happen, even if it's not what you expect. Like maybe not this company, maybe not this fund, but it's the next thing.
Good point.
Well, thank you so much to the panelists for volunteering their time tonight. Thank you for Start Out for hosting this event, and thank you for the audience for attending.
Yeah.
And if you would please, give
Yeah,
a
if you
virtual
wanna-
round of applause to the panelists, that would be great.
Yeah, and if anyone who wants to post their LinkedIn, like Katie said, it's all about making connections and being able to make connections both backward and forward between yourself and others. So feel free to link your post your LinkedIn information in the chat. That way people can share with you and stay in touch.
And Vas, hopefully you can get some sleep tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Vass. We appreciate you staying up overnight after a long flight to stay connected with us.
Absolute pleasure. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Get some of this copied off. Very good, Alex. Appreciate all the
Thanks,
work you put
James,
in.
for helping too.
I think it went really well. A lot of good insight in there. There were a lot of acronyms that I didn't even know, so I was having to
Yeah,
look
me
things
too.
up.
I think I have to go back and review the recording. Yeah, Patrick just seemed to have a wealth of knowledge. I'm glad he was free.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, excellent job. I appreciate the effort you put into it and keeping
Thank you.
the conversation running and everyone moving forward. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot. You have a good evening.
You
And
too. We'll have a good afternoon, I guess. Late
yeah, well,
afternoon.
we're stretching into evening now at 4 o'clock, so it's later for you. What is it, 7 p.m. now?
It's 7 p.m. Yeah, so it's time for me to make dinner.
Yeah. All righty. Thanks, Alex. We'll talk to you
Thanks,
later.
James.
All
Bye.
right, bye.